This conference will now be recorded.
This is SUB09's 2019 facility plan meeting with the State Construction Department. We'll introduce ourselves first. My name is Troy Decker, planning. My role here is quality control, make sure we abide by all state statutes, rules, and regs in the facility planning process, make sure we capture the data for our appropriations team to make recommendations to the commission, and then make sure we capture the appropriate data so that we can send accurate reports to both the commission and the select committee.
Good morning. I'm Paul Severson. I provide leadership, coordination, and calibration to the project management team. I'm here today supporting Lance. I try to attend as many of these meetings as I can so that I can keep myself aware of what my project managers have going on with the districts.
Amber Leach with planning, and my role is to work with the districts on the documentation and preparation for today's facility plan meeting.
I'm Raj Dami. I'm the accounting analyst here, and Amber and I have kind of assumed Charlie Kaufman's role ever since he's moved to Plat 1, and my role in this is kind of extracting information from AIM and really anything that concerns AIM.
So Amy, you heard that Charlie got the business manager's position in Plat 1?
I did. I saw him at the Wyoming Association of School Business Officials. He hadn't actually even started and came to the association meeting. So.
Well, we're excited for him and happy for him, and he's been thinking about that a while, and so we blessed him and sent him off to you guys. So anyway, Lance?
Yeah, I'm Lance Johnson, project manager. I work directly with the district.
Go ahead, district.
This is Steve Lloyd, superintendent, SUB09.
This is Amy Ann Schutz, business manager, SUB09.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our video camera, but you should still be able to see the screen there. Brandon Finney was here, but Dell grabbed him, and who knows what kind of legislative challenges they have today. So I'll just highlight him yellow, and by the end of the meeting, if he doesn't show up, we'll go ahead and remove his name. So thank you so much for joining us. One of the things that we've improved on, I think, over the years, and Amy, you could probably attest this, is just getting done a lot of the formalities of this so that when we get together, we talk about the real important things as a group and don't waste everybody's time. So Amber, we really appreciate her work with you guys and the district working beforehand. So the first part of this is really housekeeping, just making sure we have the best available data, make sure you get paid correctly. But one of the things that Charlie started doing last year is he went to the county GIS sites and started confirmation of sites for acreage and stuff like that. So we've got that authoritative information, and I know you guys reviewed that as well. But we've also put some Google images up here. One of the things in the past, at least, we've had the governor's office actually request particular facility plans because they want to know very quickly what's going on in that district and have an overview. We have had a legislator to request that as well. And so these are just great overall facility plan templates that just give them a very quick understanding of what's going on in that district. And that's why we have a lot of visuals in this. And we take a lot of stuff out of AIM and put it right in here, and so that it's very accurate and informational in a very short amount of time. So there's your two main campuses there. So you guys have reviewed the acreages and verify accuracy. That's important because it affects your WDE block grant payments for groundskeepers. So thanks for doing that. I just said AIM database is up to date. If you see something, I'm going to type notes as we go. If you see something you don't like, district or staff, just let me know. And Amber gets all excited when she finds me, catches me doing like a spelling error or something. So we'll try to catch one of those today. Property profile. The district has reviewed your property profiles. These are building information and verifies accuracy of those. This is really important because allowable square footage impacts your major maintenance payment. And we send, just like WDE sends us the enrollment data from the 1st of October after it scrubs it and stuff, and we use that for enrollment projections. The WDE uses our database information for figuring your operations and maintenance payments. So It's not just a formality. This is the data that forwards over to WDE, and so we appreciate you guys verifying that. District has reviewed enhancements. That's important for us because we send this off to the select committee each year by state statute. And I just said AIM database is up to date now and everything's good there. So district appropriations. Lance, can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it looks like 1142, the middle school renovation addition. Design is in motion. We'll just wait till next year to review that because the expenditures need to go through. One we need to talk about today is the 2827, the middle school roof. District, you said, is complete, finishing closeout documents and waiting for PM to approve retainage payout. I assume that also includes, go ahead, Amy.
He went ahead, so we've actually paid that final retainage payment.
Okay. And then are you guys in an 11-month warranty period now, or is that over? Or?
No, it is 11-month warranty period from date of substantial completion was in October. So yeah, we've been, and we are expecting them to come back in the spring. We had some bubbling on the membrane roof, and the manufacturer is aware of that, and I have a letter to that effect. So they know they're on the hook to be back once the snow is off the roof a little bit. I don't know, we might not see snow off roofs around here for a while.
Man, I know Jackson and Afton Jackson's been getting dumped on the last week or two here. You guys are about the same?
Probably not dumped on, but probably more snow than we've seen in a week period here in February for a while.
Wow. Well, great. So your day off yesterday, you just shoveled. That's wonderful. You remember who was a past facilities guy? Tebow, Kevin Tebow. You remember him, Amy?
Yep.
He was so funny one year before he retired. He's like, yeah, I'm out there in Jackson at his house. And he goes, yeah, I was shoveling all winter long. And he said, I finally looked up and said, what in the heck am I doing? I need to move. And that next summer, his neighbor was walking by. No, it was that winter. His neighbor was walking by, and he said, Kevin, if you ever want to sell this place, I buy it. And right there, right on the street, he sold it. It was just, and he moved over on the Drake side of the west side of the Tetons, and he couldn't be happier if he wanted to be. Anyway, Lance, is it okay then we revisit this next year? Is that good?
Yeah. Yes, that project, that'll be wrapped up, and we're confident that that'll be finished and everything completed.
Okay, buddy. Security, Lance.
Okay. So this year in legislation, there's a $4.9 million proposed for additional security projects. Over the last couple of weeks, it's just kind of been back and forth, really not understanding, at least I don't at this time, what that $4.9 million is going to be spent on. Paul, unless you have an update that you can give us on that, we'll just be waiting to see the gross bill to see what that money is for. As you well know, in 2017, 2018, and fiscal year 2019, 2020, you're able to use 10% of your major maintenance money for security. And there's been discussion in the select committee that fiscal year 21 and 22, they may not award that 10% enhancement fund or the security money in the future. So we've got to be real careful and cognizant on the balances when we start spending that and track that balance so we stay on top. Because if it doesn't be replenished like major maintenance or 10% enhancement major maintenance, it'll go in the hole. And there's no other way right now to be reconciling that if you go in the hole. So, and I know Amy and Steve, you guys have some security projects under design, and you have been spending some of that money, and that as you all know, you may move money between project appropriations as long as you have it in writing that you acknowledge that no backfill funding will be coming back with that, unless for whatever reason this new $4.9 million for security allows to use those backfill some of those elements that you've already moved money from. The SFD will honor the change in the written record of agreement, and we also have a Dow cover sheet that Paul redesigned that also talks about that acknowledgement for that. The SFD has had some security trainings, and I don't recall, have you guys been to the 3 security trainings that we've had in the past? I don't recall, Amy or Steve.
I went to one last summer, or last spring, whenever it was in, I think it was in Riverton.
Right, yep, okay. All right, well, and the SFD still plans on supporting those and providing those classes when they can, or those conferences, just to help out with the districts and try and keep people in the state a little bit more in tune with one another on what the needs are. And there's also some additional funding that's available from Homeland Security and the Department of Justice, private grants, that sort of thing. If you want to take a look into that, that may be helpful in your facility, in your security for your facilities. And that's what I have there for you.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to add to what Lance said, that it would appear that $4.9 million is currently still intact, but I'm going to have to admit the legislature has great tools so you can track what they are doing as far as budgets go, but for whatever reason, in the last few weeks, their updates haven't exactly been showing up where we can see them. So we know that they're talking about these items. Our staff who are over rubbing elbows with these guys, we know that there's discussions. We just don't really quite know what they're doing with it. We know on the Senate side, they have stricken some of our budget items, and the House sides, it appears that they are leaving most of it intact. So the guess would be is that it's going to have to be resolved in conference, and so until that happens, we don't really have much insight into what their conferencing discussions are, so we don't quite know how that might turn out. But our belief is the 4.9 is going to survive, and it would be available for the 20 deficiencies identified in the 2015 assessment, but it would be limited to items that were identified in the assessment. You can't create essentially a new item. You have to work with the items identified in the assessment. We still have not identified that we will be doing an additional assessment, which will probably be a consideration at the next legislative session to make a request for another assessment, but at this point that has not occurred. So the point I think I'm trying to put on this is we believe that there's more security funds coming. We're just not quite sure until the legislature takes action what form those are going to take at this moment in time.
This is Steve at the district. I just want to know, with the security money that's available that we have from that grant, we're still trying to work on that. What's the fluidity between buildings and areas so that we can better meet the current needs of our buildings?
What we will assist you with is any deficiency that was identified in the original assessment in 2015, and it is at one of the 8 funded categories. We will assist you and move it between those categories. But the limitation is that it has to be one of the 8, and it has to be a deficiency that was identified in the assessment. So sure, you will be limited to those items. So if it's not one of those items identified there, then at this point we don't have the ability to help you. The 4.9 If it continues as stands, then you will be able to put it towards one of the 20 deficiencies. But still, again, it ties back to that 2015 assessment. You can't identify a deficiency that the assessment did not find. So if that helps you understand, we're still limited to that 2015 assessment and what those deficiencies were at that point in time.
Okay.
Good
Yeah, I think
questions.
that's my end.
Say that again.
I'm good. Then that helps to clarify that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, we're sure hoping for that 4.9, and then it can kind of open it up a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And as you well know, until the ink is dry on the bill signed by the governor, it's we don't know what's going to happen. So capacity, let's look at capacity. These are just your capacity numbers. And you guys, I was looking just a little while ago at your enrollment projections, and I was doing a little calculation, and of course Amy knows it right off top of her head. And but between last year 546, this year 517, I figured approximately, give or take, what, $450,000 hit in your budget. So
Around there.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a huge hit in your budget. We recognize that, and you guys are trying to, obviously you got your block grant money, but the less students also in those buildings, less major maintenance, and so that creates a challenge too in a district like yours. But let's look at these numbers real quick.
Can you go back up to the chart real quick? You kind of went past that a little quick.
Which chart?
The chart up above, the trending chart where yeah, right there.
Yeah. So
that's significant.
Yeah, some people get a little excited about this, and Amy, maybe I told you when we were trying to size Lingo Fort Laramie, we were with Marcy and stuff, and there's when we started looking at the calculations, it went down to like 0 10 years out, and we don't believe that. These are just mathematical equations. They're built in the formula, and if trends were to continue like in the previous, or you guys will clear up at what, 650, and then it kind of declined each and every year. You guys would be 0. We don't believe that. You don't believe that. So don't get too excited. But it's just following a mathematical computation for trend. That's all it's doing. And really, anything to the right of this is really projections. And when we go to remedy something, we reference these, and we have the commission approved rules and regs that help us. If a district looks like it's decreasing or something, we can adjust this to provide best available data. Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Steve, you may be a little bit newer to this, and Amy knows this probably, but each year we kind of track the survival rate, the number of students that go from one grade to the next. And for instance, 2008, kindergarten went to 2009, first grade, second grade, third grade. That's a real consistent class there. And anyway, and then it's just a stair step when we follow them down through 12th grade, from kindergarten through 12th grade. But how the projections work is we really take 10 years of trailing data, 10 years of trailing data as provided through WDE, and we look at 2008 to kindergarten, 2009 first grade, 2009 kindergarten, 2010 first grade, and we take 10 of those and we average those. And for you guys, from your kindergarten to from kindergarten to first grade over the last 10 years, your average is a 97% survival rate. So either you're holding students back because they're not maturationally ready for first grade, or you're having students perhaps, or a combination thereof, move out of the district between those two grades. What's your opinion on that?
Moving out of the district, we very rarely hold anyone back.
Gotcha. Okay. And then you guys, you just unfortunately for you, and you know this, each year you kind of just lose a few students as they continue to go through. And so, from first to second, 98%. So you lose, a couple students. And of course, you don't have a lot of students. So just a few students can make a significant percentage difference. And you kind of keep losing them each and every year until you get to senior year. Of course, your junior year, and this is typical in the state of Wyoming, the junior year seems to be a high dropout rate. And then usually the senior year in most districts, you get some students probably back in that say, hey, I really do need to graduate. I'm going to come back in and make sure I get that degree. So we're filling for you a little bit because we know that the numbers aren't looking super great for you on a year-to-year basis. But yet, as I was looking at it and just looking at your numbers, hopefully you guys are going to plateau here. Have you guys done? It's probably too early for kindergarten roundup.
Well, we've done a preliminary.
Good. What's that looking like?
Just about what we had this year, real close. I think we're going to be within a couple students, plus or minus where we're at this year.
Oh, wonderful.
So I think we might have hit rock bottom. I'm hoping anyhow, praying.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, just look at the numbers, not knowing the future, of course, but looking at your numbers, you're probably going to be in the 500 and some range, and hopefully you guys will continue to do so. Okay, good. Any other, and that's just a quick, and you didn't learn anything from this. We probably didn't learn anything from this other than the fact that it's been a decreasing trend, and you guys are dealing with what you have to deal with, and we're certainly, we have been, our commission has been making recommendations to the select committee to increase major maintenance. We'll talk about that in a minute. One of those recommendations did not go through this year. So we'll see how that happens or it goes. Statewide, we always keep track of high capacity, which is above 100%, medium and low. The commission actually changed its capacity methodology last year to a maximum of 25 students per room in elementary. They got a huge amount of kickback from pushback from districts. So they went back to a restricted capacity of 16 students for kindergarten through third, and then 25 students, which was what it was before, fourth through sixth. And then high school and middle school, there's different calculations for that. What that did was this list was nowhere. I think we only had maybe one or two high last year. This list changed dramatically with that commission change to the restricted capacity 16, K through 3. And now we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, we have 5 elementary schools in the state that are pushing capacity to high schools, which that methodology didn't change. But the high ones have really dramatically changed. Some people ask about Casper, and that's why we put a note down here. They're 300 seats short in elementaries, but they also put into mothball status, which is just kind of the building is sitting there empty, 4 elementaries for a total of 921 seats. So that's a non-construction alternative. I'm positive that they won't be getting any money for a new school when they have pretty nice schools, not great schools, they're older schools, but they're in good condition. Those will probably be opened up again if the district so chooses to do a non-construction alternative. But at any rate, that's kind of where we are on that district or statewide. So, and I know that doesn't apply to you, but we want you to know that there are still challenges out there which can apply to you for future potential capital requests. So I just said the district has sufficient capacity for enrolled students.
Correct.
Charter schools, you don't have one, so we're good. Condition, they're just, I do this because there are new, each and every year we have new business managers, superintendents, and facility directors who really don't know what an FCI score is, which is fine. It's educational. And it just tells you how we come up with the building scores. And the bottom line is, the basic simple line is, the higher the number, the more deferred maintenance percentage-wise in that building, and it pushes it up to the top. These are all assessed equally across the state with the same methodology. And this is just page 1 of 400 and some educational buildings. You guys are not on there. But at any rate, these FCI numbers or facility condition index number just is a reflection of what kind of deferred maintenance is measured within a building. With regard to support buildings, these are real interesting. I know you guys are replacing your bus barn, but you guys aren't on here as well. But support buildings are really interesting because state statute basically says that the commission will prioritize recommendations for appropriations for educational buildings first and support buildings second. So with that, then the support buildings across state are kind of in limbo with regard to capital construction or capital appropriation requests because they're not to be prioritized as high as the educational. And you can see just alone in the up there in the capacity, we have probably hundreds of millions of dollars of capacity needs, let alone condition needs. So these people are just going to have to take care of their support buildings with major maintenance and component requests until either our economic status changes or our revenues change within the state or not. So for you guys particularly, you have excellent buildings. You guys are really, your educational buildings are in phenomenal shape, very good shape, I should say, across the district. And then, because the .23 is your worst one, which is in really good shape. And then your bus barn, which is here, and I noticed you guys, and so I did want to talk about this, Amy. I know you said it's listed SCI, no longer exists. So this is kind of what I put, and please correct me, staff, or Amber, or Lance, or Amy in this. But I said the AIM, so we've got this still in the database, and I don't think we've received an AIM update form from you guys yet to say that it's demolished and need to take it out of the database. Is that correct?
Scroll back up to the very top of their
Right
buildings. No, to
you
the
want some
buildings.
educational buildings?
No, of their building profiles. I think it's removed from building profiles,
Oh, I
but
see what
it's
you're saying.
still maintained on that 2016.
You have to remember there are two facilities on that site. So I didn't know how to go about doing it because you only have one facility listed. So, you know, one property listed, but there are two buildings, one of which was demolished due to the roof collapse and is currently in a rebuild mode. So I didn't turn in a removal form because we still have a building that is in existence that we are maintaining and doing our best doing upgrades to. But the other one, there's steel on the ground over there, and they're getting ready to start erection of that building probably within the next week or two.
So the bus barn's not there any longer on their
One of
profile.
them.
Yeah, two bus barns on the same site. One is a maintenance shop. That is the one that is no longer there. The other facility is more of a dry storage facility, place to keep buses warm, things of that nature. That one is still there. So to take it completely out of the AIM database at this point in time is not appropriate because there is a structure that remained.
So those two structures though have particular, let's go to the actual AIM database here for a second.
So what we'll have to do is still take that old building out of the system because there's other things that were tied to that old building. And we'll probably have to put a new building profile in for that new bus barn. Am I correct on that?
I don't think you have it split that way in the property profile. I think it just says bus barn. And there were two actual physical buildings sitting on that site. I think you have 1809, 007, 0100, and that is all. And there are two physical buildings there.
007, 0100?
Yep.
So bus barn, here we go, transportation, and how many square feet is that?
One.
That's why I didn't remove it. You have one active facility. There are two buildings that sit on that site at 115 North Street. One was demolished.
Gotcha. So what we need to do now, let's go over to, let me go to Google Earth here.
Go to their second page of that. Troy. Is there a second page?
No.
Because but what was the other maintenance thing? There was a maintenance one listed.
There was a big piney maintenance something, but that's somewhere else.
The Big Piney Maintenance Storage Shed?
Yeah,
That's a storage shed for maintenance. That doesn't have anything to do with the bus barn.
got it.
Okay, well, I want to check address and make sure it's two separate things when we don't have it. That's what I'm.
So yeah, she's saying on the 007 property, which is bus barn property, you guys have a single building, but there are really two buildings.
Correct. That 9,836 gross square feet is between two buildings. One building is approximately 5,000 square feet, and the other building is approximately 4,800.
Okay.
Amy, I'm looking at Google Earth right now, and I'm seeing your old bus barn, the two with the red roof, and then just kind of adjacent to those, it's kind of an L-shaped lot. There's two other buildings there with an L-shaped roof.
That's not ours. Those
Okay.
are storage facilities. We only own the two major buildings, and you have it highlighted on your property profile or on your property listing that you have on the deeds.
Okay, this is the property we're looking at, right?
Yep.
Correct. And the longer, more rectangular of the two is gone. The one that is squatter and not as long is in existence.
Okay, so this
And
one's
we
gone.
own to about where the dark brush kind of looking stuff to the east is. Yes.
That back fence.
And all the way to the back, you can barely see a fence running along right there. There's a billboard to the west, not this fence, but the fence to the north. Correct. There's a billboard we own to the fence behind the billboard that way. Correct. And to about, not all that, nope, that's not us.
Yep,
To about right there.
Yeah.
We own to about the edge of the street, essentially.
Yep.
Okay,
So I couldn't take that whole property out because one is still in existence, one is being rebuilt.
all right, so it sounds to me like the first thing is, and it's kind of interesting because we should have had two buildings. We should have two buildings in the property profile
On the one track.
on the one track, but
Correct.
we didn't. So that's kind of interesting. So I think what we need to do here, Lance, if you could work with her with regard to submitting an AIM update form, probably we need to talk to JJ on this one a little bit because it's kind of interesting. It's almost like we're going to have to probably, to be honest with you, because we have to track historically, we have to keep expenditures in the past, like major maintenance and if you did any capital, to the building they were applied to. Unfortunately, this is two buildings in one, and so whatever major maintenance in the past has been applied, that building needs to maintain. And what do they say? Corrected? I think he says corrected on the property profile. So I think what he's going to have to do, you guys are going to have to do, is we're going to have to take this one and do corrected. And what will happen is it'll keep it in there. We can still track historic expenditures toward it. And then you're going to have to add two AIM update forms, one for the building that remains on the east side, and that will be independent from the new one that you're bringing in. And then we'll have two buildings on the same property.
Amy, is that 9,800 square feet the combination of both those buildings square footage?
Yes.
I should say the two existing ones.
Yes.
Okay.
The two existing ones, and I will tell you that the rebuilt due to fire sprinkler restrictions will be the exact, it'll be a slightly different configuration, but the square footage will remain almost exactly the same.
And that was with insurance money, correct?
Some of it we had to get a steel upgraded frame and add some garage doors. We had to use some district money. It's not necessarily an enhancement, but the insurance insisted that they would only cover it back to its original state, which was a wood frame building made out of, it was essentially a pole barn. And obviously, we store approximately $3 million worth of buses in there. We didn't want to have the roof collapse on them again, so we upgraded to a steel frame building. And so,
Amy, did you use? I'm sorry.
No, it's not major maintenance. It's district money in its entirety, depreciation reserve.
I was going to ask if you used major maintenance for the deductible.
No.
Okay.
No, the deductible on that particular claim went towards the auto. Our particular insurance, it's a flat $5,000 deductible for we had an auto/property claim. Our auto claim was caused by our property, so we had one deductible per incident, and we needed the bus fixed because we couldn't get it took us almost 2 years to get through insurance to get the actual building. I mean, we barely brought that building down in November of 2018. So the deductible went, was a transportation claim on a bus repair, and that's how that went. So no, we didn't use major maintenance for any of it.
Okay.
In fact, we'd actually just put almost $30,000 worth of new windows and doors in that into the building.
So, Amy, if you just want to go ahead and fill out 2 of those building, I can't remember.
AIM update form?
The update form, the AIM update form, yeah, and get those to me, and then I'll go through it, and then we'll get with JJ and see what we need to do to get that reconciled in AIM.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I can. I don't think in my records I've kept it separated by building. It was just whenever something took place at the bus barn, we clocked it to that 19007-100.
Well, I mean, it'd be just as simple as just measuring the outside of the building for the square footage, and we do have your acreage, and we'll see what JJ wants to do, how he wants to split that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Lance, I think that's on this one. It's probably smart just for you guys together to talk to JJ on the front end. Just make sure that everybody's on the same page, and that way, Amy, when you submit, you don't have to redo something. So that even though we think pretty well what's going to happen here, you guys have a talk with JJ and make sure that we get you lined out so that you don't have to redo something.
Okay.
Okay, good. In the meantime, it's going to remain until we get the corrections, and then we'll move on from there. And next year it'll be perfect. When did you say substantial completion of that bus barn is, or is it already done?
No, we're hoping we have steel on the ground as of this week, so they're actually starting to put the walls up. We're hoping to have the exterior frame up by first part of April, and then we'll have to play it by ear for the actual concrete work on the interior and some of the finishing on the interior.
You know what I think of that, putting up a building in the middle of winter in Big Piney? I thank God for a college degree. That is tough work. Wow.
Building and some exterior tin, you're in for numb fingers and cuts. That's what you're in for.
Wow. Well, at least it wouldn't be painful because you couldn't feel your hands. Okay, good. Thank you for that discussion. I think it was an important one. Major maintenance. You guys updated statuses of work orders, so appreciate that. Just cleaned up the database. If you submitted any planned work orders, Lance looked at them, and if they were appropriate and qualified for major maintenance, he approved them. Thank you for doing that.
Amy, I need to call you on that latest one you have in there. I guess you were out last week with the business manager stuff.
Yep.
So I'll give you a call here this morning on the auditorium. The seating.
Okay.
Thanks.
Seating.
I'll call you when we're done.
Okay.
So 10% security, we know that you still have a balance there, and that does not have to qualify for the definition of major maintenance, so you have more freedom with that. Of course, the 10% 8 and 10% enhancements are literally the same in definition. They were just two different bienniums for appropriations, and they went from 8% to 10% after the first calculation, and changed that within state statute. So I guess what we're trying to do, Amy, and you probably know this, we're trying to clean up. I mean, that's clear back to like 2003 or something, or 4. We're trying to clean up the 8% balances, definitionally same as 10% enhancement. So if you guys do another enhancement, if you would please use that 8% so we can zero that and get it off our books, which is now 15 years old, give or take, and we would appreciate that.
So, but I don't have to use it if I need to use it for major maintenance, correct? I think our particular district's philosophy has been, if we have things that really need to be used for major maintenance, which I have a whole middle school that's probably going to eat up a good chunk of our major maintenance budget, it's not necessarily an enhancement unless I need to use it for an enhancement, correct?
That is correct. Yep, and there's no time frame on that. Yeah, I'm just saying that if you do use enhancement in the money in the future, when you choose, absolutely, if you just use that first, we'd appreciate it. But you're correct. And in fact, state statute actually requires that if you have low condition scores, that you should use your major maintenance on that first before you start spending your 10% and 8%. So
yeah, as Lance and the district have discussed, this middle school renovation, we deferred maintenance thinking we were going to be getting a new building. So we have a lot of mechanical, electrical, cosmetic renovation type of things that are going to have to take place. That's why you see such a large ending balance. We're pretty much saving up. We think we're pretty good in most of our other buildings, but we know we're going to face a significant uphill challenge in some of the mechanical, electrical type of items coming out of that middle school. So.
Are you going to kind of look at those and maybe get them kind of designed or estimated prior to moving forward before you put it out to bid, I assume?
We have a component level project that is on the books. You kind of skipped over that. It's a capital construction project that was second right there under facility condition. I'm sorry, up more where we were talking about the roof.
Can't remember. I don't think it was that far up.
Yeah,
I think it was.
After this.
Let's see, was it on the? You're saying it was on the appropriations.
Correct. Remember, we repurposed the appropriation.
Okay.
Right there. So the middle school renovation addition project is in the design phase. As part of that phase, Doobie Mulder, the architects, have been tasked with helping us identify what mechanical areas that we're going to address. And so the big list on that particular project is going to be keeping the financials straight, because we will be dealing with the capital construction the capital construction reappropriation for that building, as well as major maintenance, and possibly, more than likely, district depreciation reserve money to get the building the way we want it. So I do realize we have a large major maintenance budget sitting there. We have several projects that are ongoing. We have about a $300,000 concrete project that is a work in process that we are probably going to go out to bid here within the next couple of weeks. But that 1142 project is probably our highest priority at this point in time. In addition to some major maintenance we'll be putting towards security, because some of our buildings weren't funded for the security appropriation.
Gotcha. Okay. This is just last year's priorities. All it is a snapshot in time. Last year's, it's just illustrated within this facility plan. If anybody higher than us ever asked to look at it, you prioritize your roof coverings down to your least expenditure, which is central plant distribution systems of $1,700. This is just a look building to building, so we don't really need to talk about it. It's just illustrative. And then here's your, you don't have any 1 and 2 scores. So we had to go down to 3s, which are good scores. Oops, there was 1 right there. To be complete in 2 years for a poor score. But anyway, we've had every year we have legislators ask us in committee, hey, so what are these people doing with their money? Are they addressing their lowest scores? And so this is how we've addressed that. We just let you guys speak for yourselves. We put down the lowest scores you have. In this case, very few poor scores. Most of them are good. And then we just let you speak for yourself. And if someone asks at the legislative level, what's SUB09 doing? We just ship it over and say, this is what they're doing. And we let you guys represent yourself. So you can see there are some more 2s over here in the middle school, like you were talking about, and stuff like that. So thanks for filling that out and representing your own facility plan, your own district. We love just to pass that on if anybody ever asks, and we're not misrepresenting in any way, shape, or form. There is, every 4 years, state statute requires a new condition assessment to be done out in the districts. That's over 500 buildings, including the supplemental or the support buildings. And so this fall, we're going to be putting together a scope. We'll go out, acquire a consultant to do that. And then what we'll do is training. And I don't know, Amy, if you guys have sent someone or been able to, but we always encourage districts in April of next year. Well, it won't be on the 1st probably, but sometime in April of next year, we'll let all the districts know that there's some training for the tool that's used to assess your buildings. And we really encourage districts to come look at the tool, ask questions, understand fully how scores are applied, and then their important role. In the past, we've had districts, and I don't think it happens much anymore. We've had districts hand the assessment team when they show up on site, hand them the keys, say, have fun. When you're done, bring back the keys. The problem with that is that we need the best qualified person in the district who knows facilities to walk with them and talk about the condition of the building, so that those assessment, each system they look at, they have the best available data in order to score it. The district doesn't score it, we don't score it, the assessor scores it, but they score it based on information. Verifiable information. So that's why we do that. So make sure that you're, I'm encouraging you to attend that training and to fully understand that tool and to fully understand your role within that process.
I don't think so. Right.
The other thing is that we've had districts complain in the past that, I mean, we've got 2.5 months in the summer, just like you guys for projects. To do over 500 buildings, it just isn't financially or schedule-wise feasible. We'd have to have 30 teams out there hammering it. So, so what we do is we do at the end of the school year, let's see, that will be in maybe a month or month and a half, give or take 2 months before the school year's out. We do we'll start the assessments, and then at the beginning of the school year they'll finish them, and it's just a reasonability, and we try not to interrupt school, but at the same time we know that we can't get that many buildings done in a short summertime, so which is when school districts are usually busiest for facilities, so it's kind of a hammer there too. So anyway, any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, coming your way. Components, so we did have multiple component requests this year, and you guys did not, that I saw, have any on here this year. And then Amy, but you have applied and gotten that before, is that correct?
That's the middle school roof that we talked about earlier, was a component request project from last year.
That's right. Okay. This year we have 31 requests, totaling about $39 million. We have a committee made up of 12 school district representatives. We asked for 4 superintendents, 4 business managers, 4 facility project managers, or 4 facility directors, and they volunteer their time and prioritize these based on very specific criteria. So this is this year's list. And we'll forward that to the commission. They've already looked at it, and we'll make recommendations based on this if we are approved to move forward with any kind of component request. Component projects, and I know you, Amy, you know this, but for Steve's sake, component projects are simply capital monies that supplement major maintenance needs when major maintenance is insufficient to address it within school districts. And that's about it.
Okay.
The district, I just said here, guys, if this is fair, the district's continuing to maintain its buildings with available major maintenance funds. So Amy, and you know this, just a reminder, if you come across something through the planning process for the middle school and decide, you know what, we just can't afford that. And if you're willing to wait for the next biennial budget, which is 2 years out, you can ask for component funding and see if you can get that money. We know it's a risk. We know it's a delay of project. I know you're trying to capitalize on a construction company coming in and working on your buildings and simultaneously pairing up your major maintenance to get more for the buck. So we respect that as well. All right, legislative session. I know you guys through WASBO, I think it's the WASBO website. You guys have a very good way to track bills as they move through and have an impact on education. And some of those bills are tracked through there do have an impact on facilities with regard to funding and stuff or what you need to do. But starting last year, we started tracking bills, anything that would be related to facilities or for capital funding or that would affect you with regard to going out to bid or whatever. So we'll just kind of go over this real quick. If it's red, it's dead. If it's green, it's still alive. So the ones that are red are dead. Public works and contracts, and some of these, Brandon's usually in here, but because he has to be working with Dell this morning, I'll do my best, and you may know something about this, but House Bill 52 is public works contracts. And basically, architects are now to write the specifications for products that are available from Wyoming resident suppliers. So that's the bottom line to House Bill 52 is the legislature wants Wyoming money to stay in Wyoming and not go out to architects or other professionals out of the state, and kind of limit that and make that criteria important to spend the money in state. House Bill 65 procurement amendments. This has been this may not necessarily be accurate right now, but basically what they're trying to do is to increase bonding to make that in order to bond go up to $50,000 instead of the lower number. One thing we had like the University of Wyoming, community colleges, state agencies or entities, and then the school districts, and then counties, and then cities, all doing something different in state statute with regard to procurement. And so what they tried to do, and they worked with all kinds of people last year collaboratively that represented many stakeholders in the state of Wyoming. And they've made some recommendations in state statute that aligned all these things to the same processes. They were going off like, 30, 40-year-old numbers for when you have to go out for a competitive bid or get 3 competitive quotes, when you have to advertise. All this does is bring it all into a unified. It increases those dollar amounts, so it's not quite a pain. Like architectural procurement would be done at $50,000, so you'd have to go through a more formal process at $50,000 or more, and not necessarily less than that. So I'm sure that makes sense to you, Amy, since you do this on a regular basis.
Yep.
Educational major maintenance funding. So it was signed by the governor last week. Payments are now, districts have complained about this. We get it, but major maintenance payments are going to be done in quarterly payments and not once a year or twice a year, 4 times a year. And I think that the reason for that was the state of Wyoming was really borrowing against itself at the beginning of every fiscal year, and they would borrow from other accounts that were whole, and then they'd pay them back in order to make its financial obligations to the budget. And then over the year, they would kind of go in debt in one way. They'd borrow from another fund, and then they'd pay those funds back as revenues came into the state of Wyoming through the year. And by the end of the fiscal year, they were positive because those revenues actually came in. But they had those funds to borrow from. And so one of the things they want to do is slow down the quarterly payments, or slow down major maintenance payments, in order not to have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul, and then pay Peter back again when Paul's whole and can do that. The other thing is, I think they saw instead of districts, I mean, it's just flat out truth, instead of districts getting earning interest off of major maintenance in their bank accounts, the state of Wyoming said, hey, if we can make $5 million off of interest in the year, then that's what we're going to do, and then we'll spread it across the state for appropriations as we move forward. Those are the two reasons for that. School finance interfund loan, that was signed last year, and it's just a matter of moving money between accounts in order to, I think it was from the Legislative Stabilization Reserve account, and to have some interfund loans in order to make money flow in the way it needs to. House Bill 94, you guys can, if you have any questions or comments, or you know more than I do, that'd be great. House Bill 94, construction contracts, indemnity provisions. Paul, I usually have Paul explain this one.
Yeah, what the intent of this is basically not to take and indemnify anybody on projects that the state is funding, and that would include the district and consultants, and basically the state is demanding that people take responsibility for the work they do. So that's essentially what the intent of that is. I know it's been tinkered with a little bit, and it may have a little different meaning, but that's what it was earlier on.
Okay, and then this one right here, Paul, House Bill 108, the contractor's final payment.
Now, what this is basically formalizing the requirement, in particular, since the district is the one making payments directly to contractors, that contractors, in particular, retainage payments are not withheld without cause. There have been some cases where that has occurred sometimes for years on end, and this is basically codifying that that should not be occurring if there is not cause.
House Bill 152, Wyoming Underground Facilities Notification Act. That's just relating to underground public utility facilities. It requires architects and engineers to have in their plans giving directives to contractors to call for prior to excavation. And then there might be an up in the ante with a penalty with regard if they don't, and they tear up something, that penalty may be a little more than it used to be. Senate File 49, County Zoning Authority Private Schools. This has been, it doesn't apply to you necessarily by any means, but it's in Jackson. And what happened was a private school bought land. But you know how land is in Jackson. It's limited and small, and what you do get, you get, and you're going to try to maximize what you do on that property with your building. Well, the county basically held the private school and said, we're gonna consider you not as a school, but as a private entity, and therefore you have to meet the same zoning requirements as any other private entity would have to do, like a business. And so they rallied their legislator or legislators, drafted a bill and said, you know what, this basically says, if passed, that the same zoning requirements for a public school would apply to a private school, therefore allowing a private school to do more on the land and meet its facility needs in a way that doesn't have to be restricted by zoning for other private entities. Government contract labor organization, I don't know. I'm not even going to do that one. It might have an impact on you. The Senate File 53. 57 is public records. I guess basically there's been a complaint that's, and it would apply to you guys as well. When public records are requested, they need to be provided within a certain amount of time. At one time, they had it up to a felony if you didn't abide by the shorter amounts of time you have to provide that. They kind of softened that, but it does affect you guys and how quickly you need to get public records out and accountability for that. Senate File 64, School Safety and Security. It basically says WDE in consultation with Homeland Security, AG's office, State Fire Marshal, and the State Construction Department is going to develop safety and security guidelines. And I know you guys have been tracking that, so you probably know more about it than we do. Senate File 74, professional service procurement. This is another one on architects, engineers, other providers of services like that. They're going to have a physical office in Wyoming, and 50% of those contracts shall be done with staff or contractors employed in Wyoming. Again, it's an emphasis by the state legislature that if it's Wyoming money, at least 50% of that needs to stay in Wyoming. And I don't think they want us hiring architects outside the state as much and all that money flowing out of the state instead of supporting in-state people who live here and work here. The state federal school trust land exchange, that's basically exchanging state lands with federal lands. State lands not quite as accessible as they need to be, maybe they're landlocked, and would then make them available to generate maybe grazing rights or something, or grazing fees, but basically optimizing those lands by negotiating or trading with federal government, and then getting more revenues off those that would go toward the schools. So I think that's a good move there. Senate File 103, state capital construction. This is kind of an interesting one. As you well know, 4 years ago, the School Facilities Commission or department was unified or brought into the same agency as the construction management, which handles all the state buildings. We were brought into what they call the state construction department. And then the construction management kind of reports up to the state building commission, which the governor is chair of that commission, and then they make recommendations eventually to go to Joint Appropriations Committee. And then we make recommendations through our commission, and then commission up to the Select Committee on School Facilities. Well, that Select Committee is now going to become, according to this bill, if it goes through, is going to become a super committee. And so that Select Committee is going to probably become the who's who of the legislature. And so the construction management and state facilities or school facilities divisions will report up through our commissions, but it'll end up in a select committee, and all state capital appropriation requests will go through that select committee through the state construction department. One committee, one department, but two divisions that report to that single committee. Here's a bunch of bills, red, dead. And then this is kind of the mysterious part. There are still appropriations going on for schools. Last we knew, at least, these were still in there. But we've got one version on the House side, one version on the Senate side. And so
Most ones are intact.
Still,
yeah.
Did the Senate go? I think that one's still there for now.
I'm not sure. Reading it
Okay.
last Friday, I'm thinking it may not be there anymore.
Okay. Well, one way or the other, one of those bills is going to go out. And what was on there, at least up to until now that we know, there was a satellite high school for 17, almost 18 million in Rock Springs to deal with capacity. The alternative school there in Sheridan, Converse 1, Douglas, had 3 modulars, and Amy and district, you did this. It sounds like it worked for you, but they had appropriations that were existing, and they had leftover money from 3 rural modulars, and they asked the commission to make a recommendation, which they did, to take those monies and reappropriate them toward the Shawnee modular, which is a modular up there by Orange Junction on I-25, and it's got mouse infestation like you wouldn't believe. And so they asked for that money to maybe deal with that from leftover monies. So I think they will probably reappropriate that, we hope. Montessori, we are responsible to make recommendations for leases on charter schools, Montessori, which is in Albany County, and then the past charter school, which is in Cheyenne. Unanticipated monies are always associated with major capital projects, just in case there's something that's unforeseen. We can ask for, the district can ask for more money to cover that. Security projects, we talked about 4.95 million. And major maintenance, because of the change or update of the RS means value per square foot for construction, We're asking for another $1 million, and that's still working through, and then it'll be divided among the school districts. I don't know exactly how JJ will do that, but it'll be equitable according to the major maintenance calculation within state statute. I know none of this really necessarily applies to you, but it's just showing that 33 million are still working through. So there's at least some commitment from the legislature and governor to continue to consider the major capital requests in the state. Okay, that's about it on that. Any questions on the legislative update? Some districts like it, some districts may feel like it's a waste, but we're trying to capture that and communicate to you. Any questions or concerns, comments?
No, thank you.
Did you guys, just out of curiosity, you've seen some of these, but probably not all of them through your tracking on the educational side, is that correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. At least you're aware of it. Biennial budget requests. So a couple things here, and I put something here and you can verify it or not. The first thing I ask is district, looking at your capacity condition stuff, I'm assuming and only assuming that the district has no capital requests for this 2021-22 biennial budget. We would not anticipate you rising up on a needs index list or a capacity list or any other list right now for capital funding, but I'll ask you straight up, is that true?
That's true.
Okay. Updated rules and regs through the commission have changed the prioritization of project requests in the future. So in the past, we always did a capacity list and made recommendations off that to the commission for higher capacity needs. A building condition list in and of itself made requests off that. And then when those higher capital requests were considered, we also dealt with educational suitability simultaneously with those capital monies. That's not the world we live in today. According to commission rules and regs, which is more closely in line with state statute, every building in the state will have 50% of its weighting. It'll have 3 scores that roll up into a composite score. 50% will be based on facility condition of that building, 35% capacity, and then 15% on educational suitability. Those will roll up then into one single score for each building, each of your buildings, and then we'll prioritize all 400 and some educational buildings based on that matrix. Any questions on that?
No.
We have questions on that. We're wondering how we're going to do it. All right, last and least, and it will make it a public process and run by districts and give them voice, and it's going to change the way things are done, and it's going to change lists, and but that's what the districts ask for, that's what they get, and now we're going to have to apply it. Before we end here, we always give the district one last word here. Before we end, are there any unique issues, ideas, or concerns that you have that we have not discussed within the facility plan up to this point?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, staff, anything else before we close?
Nothing.
I don't have anything, Troy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lance. All right, hey guys, Steve, Amy, it's always nice to hear your voices. It's better to see you, and hopefully we can stop by sometime going through. I know Lance is much more often doing that than we are, but sure appreciate you. You guys have great buildings, a great district. We wish you the best in the future, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.